Okay,
I'm ready.
all right, well, I'm going to go ahead and let you start now.
Okay, hi everyone. Thanks for waiting for me. I got caught up with something in the office. But I want to welcome everyone to our second Build Your Career Forum. It's our first one virtually due to COVID, but we're excited that we can still have it and still continue talking about the trades and moving forward. A couple things real quick. If you have, I can't see who's all on here for students, but if you're a student and you do not have your face showing, we'd love to see you. It's just easier for our presenters to chat and see faces. And then when you ask questions, we can see who you are. We don't care if you're in your PJs, just throw on a hat and you're good to go. Second thing is just a little bit about myself. I run the Quad City Builders and Remodelers Association. And what we do is work with people in the trades industry. One thing we are able to do for students in high school and coming out of high school is connect you with industry partners in our field or schools or like with EICC, different trades programs. We can kind of be the connecting factor for you to get you started on your path to a career. So when this is over, you have these great videos that you can watch, that ones you've sat in or ones that you weren't able to sit in live, and also can connect with our office if you want some information on any industry partners out in the community that you'd like to maybe work with. So we'll talk more about that as we go on, but just want to let you know. Our moderator today is Tishly Herrington from EICC. Thanks, Sam, for showing your face. I see you there. And Tishley's going to guide us through the hour and keep things moving. So Tishley, I'll turn this over to you.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks again, students, for being here. We're very excited to share with you this morning. My role in this is to kind of moderate and watch the chat. So as we move through this, if you have any questions, please be sure and type them into the chat, and I'll be sure that they get asked. I do think that at the end, we'll probably have some time that you can unmute and ask some questions after we're done with the presentation. But as we go through, if you have questions at all, please don't wait. Put them in the chat so that you don't forget them and we be sure to get them asked. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Zeke Gonzalez from EICC's HVAC program, and I'll let you take it over, Zeke.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tishley. So yeah, nice to be a part of this this forum. It's very different from what we're used to, but I think you know, given that the circumstances, and this is a great way to reach out to students and get you involved with what's happening in our industry. It's a really exciting time in our industry right now. Aside from everything that's happening in this world right now, people need to have heat, people need to have cooling. We like to live comfortably, so making the best that we can of it during this time. So a little bit about myself. I'm a Scott Community College graduate as well. I worked out in the HVAC industry before coming back to work here at Scott. So I've been with the college here for close to 14 years, and I've been in the classroom for the last 4 years. I really like it here. I like the environment. It's a really great place to learn. Where our facilities are top notch. I plan on giving you a tour of all the equipment and everything that we have here and everything that we have to offer. So my role here with the college started off with the maintenance department, and I was doing a lot of the work here on the equipment, boilers, HVAC equipment, refrigeration, and got into energy management controls. So my career progressed here within the college, and I was able to get exposure to a lot of different pieces of equipment, from residential all the way to commercial to industrial equipment. So it was very broad, and so I bring that all into the classroom now so that you can get exposure to all sorts of different pieces of equipment. And yeah, so, you know, I look forward to, you know, possibly seeing you here in the future and giving you live tours of the facility. Did you want me to go ahead and start with the tour, or do we have a video, Tishley, that we were going to show?
Yes, Lauren's going to play the video now.
Okay, great.
All right. I'll share again. Let me just get onto the video.
Gotta love technology.
Yeah.
All right, everybody can see my screen?
One of the things that makes our program stand out is that we do have a really nice sheet metal shop. We emphasize on residential fittings, transitions, the installation of furnaces, and AC units, air conditioning units. And because we have that sheet metal shop and all the different equipment, we're able to test airflow and check for efficiency of the units, not just put in and install a unit, but to make sure that everything's going to be running to peak performance.
My favorite part of the program is the lab time. It's very hands-on, and you just get to actually experience what we learn in our book and actually physically do it.
Our lab is pretty state-of-the-art. We have everything from older equipment, you know, things that were put in 30 years ago, but we moved quickly into Wi-Fi thermostats, solar assisted units, hydronic heat, geothermal, a wide range of equipment. You're going to be working on the newest of newest equipment, and also working on the equipment that is 90% of what's out there residentially.
There's a lot of different avenues that you can pursue, you know, within the HVAC field. And there's a lot of opportunities out there, and I think our chances are pretty good of gaining employment.
We've had students that are very successful leaving the program, get into everything from sales, installing, service technicians. I've seen some of our students get right into a service van and troubleshoot residential service calls. We recently started adopting Bluetooth technology into our diagnostic tools. So we're using Bluetooth technology for combustion analyzation. We're using Bluetooth technology for efficiency testing and airflow of our furnaces and equipment. So I think what's special about our program is that we stay up to date. We're always looking to see how we can improve our program.
Thanks, Lauren. So we'll get Lauren a chance to get us out of the video, and we'll get back to Zeke, and then I think Zeke is going to give us a tour. And remember, be sure and write those questions. Oh, we already have one. We'll let Zeke give his tour, and then I will ask that question.
Okay. So you'll be watching the chat for me?
I will, yes, I will watch the
Okay,
chat.
yeah, so I'm going to give a tour of the facility. Basically, I'm going to start off with the sheet metal laboratory and talk a little bit about what we do in here. Okay, so like the video was stating, you know, our facility is built so that we teach everything from installation all the way into service. We take a lot of pride in the sheet metal shop. We still teach sheet metal the old-fashioned way, where we're laying everything out by hand. We take stock pieces of metal, and we use all the different pieces of equipment to bend and fold our sheet metal pieces. You can see some of the projects that we've worked on, some of the projects that students have done. A little bit of a glare, but usually at the end of the year, there's a nice little guitar there that somebody made. But all the different techniques that we use on the bending breaks, students are able to apply that. And then we do a nice little project, a fun project at the end of the year that kind of lets you tie in all your skills that you learned throughout the year. And you know, basically use your creativity So I'm gonna kind of walk through the lab and try not to be so jumpy here. So let me see if I can stabilize this a little bit. As you can see, like right now, some of my students are working on residential pieces of equipment. So we've taken apart furnaces. I like to get deep into like the troubleshooting side. So the program's very technical. You know, it has a lot to do with electricity and troubleshooting motors, combustion analyzation. So this would be a 90% residential furnace, probably something similar to what you might have at home. And, you know, we're able to get all into the equipment and use a lot of different tools that I'll be showing you here to diagnose and troubleshoot these pieces of equipment. So all the different stations that we have set up here are for, you know, for all the, you know, students, and that way they can work on their own individual pieces. And it really helps with the learning process. So, you know, you're able to take it all in and absorb all the different types of equipment. Over here, we have a lot of air conditioning units. So we just wrapped up a section on charging and recovering refrigerants. And that's one of the certifications that we cover in the program is Environmental Protection Agency 608 certification. And that's a certification that you would need out in the field. It's a federal regulation that allows you to buy and safely handle refrigerants. So we cover all that material here in the lab, and I'll just kind of move my way around here so that you can see all the different workstations that we have. We've got a lot of gas piping laying around, a lot of different parts of the furnaces, and that's how we teach here. You know, we break down every component. You know, take everything apart, rebuild things, you know, troubleshoot them, and yeah, just kind of go at it that way. So I'm gonna work over here to this other side of our lab. This is the entryway, and this is where we keep more of our cream of the crop, you would say, furnaces. These are all, you know, Wi-Fi enabled thermostats. You can control the temperatures remotely. You can make changes to your set points. Really, just, you know, more of your higher efficiency equipment, and that's what we do here. You know, we take everything from the ground up. You can see all the different sheet metal fittings that we make. So I'll stop right here. So this one right here, you know, we made all the sheet metal, everything that you see here, all the shiny sheet metal. That was all just flat stock iron pieces of sheet metal. We bended and folded all of that. Here we have another piece of equipment. And I was just working with a student earlier this week on this piece of equipment. So what we have here is some of the tools that you might use. And we've got an oxyacetylene torch. So I teach how to braze and how to use an oxyacetylene torch, how to install the line sets. This would be the unit that's installed outside of your home. This would be somewhere inside your home. This is the furnace side. So we use digital multimeters, and I teach you how to trace down losses of power, losses of electricity, how to install the gas piping, how to fold the sheet metal, how to glue and connect all the PVC pipe fittings. So there's a lot of different skills that come together when you're installing, and then there's another set of skills that come into play when you're troubleshooting the furnaces. So it's a little bit of everything tied into one. I've had a lot of students say that, you know, they really like the program because, you know, they came in thinking they were going to, you know, learn how to install a furnace, learn how to install an AC. And when they finished the program, you know, they learned a lot of technical skills related to troubleshooting and maximizing the efficiency of this equipment. You know, knowing all the different components and what makes them fail, taking the mystery out of out of what fails in these furnaces and what's the best approach to troubleshooting them. Do they need to know welding? So the torch kit that I use here is a form of welding. It's more of a, you know what, I'll fire this up for you. It's more of a high temperature soldering. So there is a lot of safety that goes into effect with this trade. You have to absolutely be sure of your skills, and when you're using these types of torches, you might be in some applications where you might be in an attic or you might be in a basement in a confined space. So you want to make sure you know how to operate your torch kit, make sure that you know how to turn it on and turn it off safely. And it's a high temperature torch kit. So let me fire this up here for you. So you can see just from the flame, and I don't know if you can hear the sound of the flame, but it's a very high temperature, aggressive flame. And we're using this type of torch to connect our copper line sets from the AC units. Because of the high intensity of this flame, we're able to weld. It is a form of welding. So we're able to weld the copper pieces together. We're able to fuse the copper pieces together. And because it's a high temperature torch, it's going to make for a very strong weld. And these copper line sets have a lot of changes in temperature. So they can be very cold or they can be very hot. And there's a lot of expanding and contracting that happens with these copper line sets. So we want to make sure that we're going a step above soldering the two pieces of copper pipe. So we are using a form of brazing to do that. These line sets are connected to an outdoor unit. Let me adjust my camera here.
I was just going to say, you've moved out of camera vision there.
Yeah, I remembered I zoomed in. So these torches are used to connect the copper line sets to the outdoor unit. And when you're dealing with these outdoor units, these units contain a refrigerant. It's a gas. And so, like I was mentioning, the EPA certification is one of the certifications. The material that we cover is based around Section 608, and that is an exam that you take, and it allows you to buy the refrigerants to charge these units. So you can see that every unit might have a different type of refrigerant. So knowing different types of gases, the pressures related to those gases, the safety that goes with working with these gases. You're working with very high pressure, sometimes flammable, toxic gases. So you have to be, just very careful about, where you're using them, how you're using them, and how you're handling these refrigerants. We also don't want to lose any of the refrigerant that we're working with, because a lot of the gases that you're going to be working with are ozone depleting or have a global warming potential. So part of the class is, just making sure that you know how to properly manage the recovery of the refrigerants and the recharging of the refrigerants back into the unit. So there's a little bit of, like I said, there's a little bit of everything that goes along with installing the equipment. I've heard, some of my students really like the electrical side, so they really dive into like the troubleshooting. Some of my students really like the mechanical side, so they get very involved with the sheet metal and the installation of the unit. And that's the nice thing about this field, is that it's very broad. So there's different careers that you can go into. You can go into installation, you can go into service work, you can go into sales. I've had students, leave the program and they go into supermarket refrigeration repair. So it's very, very broad. And I've got students that are starting to leave the area as well. I've had a couple of students that took positions in Florida, they're in Las Vegas. They're kind of spreading out. So this type of work can be found anywhere. Did we have any questions, Tishley, that came up?
Yes, there's one in the chat, and then I have a plethora of questions I would like
Sure.
to ask you if we don't have any more. So, but the first question in the chat is, so where did you go to high school, and what company did you work for before you came back to SEC?
Let me just adjust my camera here. So when I graduated from the program, I went to work for Kale Company. We'll go back before that. I went to Moline High School. So I graduated in class of '94 from Moline High School. I was doing a lot of odd and end jobs, you know, between high school, and I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do in college. So I took a couple classes here and there. I found out, like, you know, college wasn't for me at the time. So, you know, I worked a lot of labor jobs in between, you know, when I started working HVAC. I got interested in this program because, you know, basically, you know, I was getting to a point where, you know, I was paying a lot of money to have my equipment repaired. My furnaces were breaking down every winter. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to go learn this stuff. And I looked up the program, and I came to classes here at Scott, and I really enjoyed it. So, you know, this was almost, you know, 20 years ago. I was a student here within this lab. And so, you know, I really liked it. I enjoyed it. And I went to go work for Kale Company in Moline. And I spent about 4 years with them before I took a maintenance position here at the school. I know one of the questions was, you know, what are like the downfalls of working with HVAC? And I would probably say that that's one of the biggest downfalls for me, was that, you know, when we're working here in the Midwest, you have the temperature fluctuation. So, you know, sometimes it's really hot in the summertime, really cold in the wintertime. And then you kind of have those months where, you know, it's just nice to leave the windows open and not have to worry about, you know, the utility bill as much, you know, take a break from the furnace or the AC. And so, you know, the dependability of the hours, you know, that always comes into play. You know, am I going to be able to get 40 hours a week? And you know, when it's really cold out or when it's really hot out, that's when you're going to be really busy. You know, you're going to be making, you know, 50 to 60 hours a week. And then all of a sudden, you know, you might hit a slow time. You know, days like today, you know, we're already in furnace season here, but it's going to be pretty nice out. So, you know, I think we're going to be getting up to like almost the 60s by this weekend. So, you know, it might be a slow weekend for service calls. Sometimes, you know, customers don't like to pay like the overtime calls. So, you know, the hours is probably one of the biggest downfalls. Is, you know, they're fluctuating between, you know, very extreme, you know, over 40 hours a week, and then some weeks you might be, you know, just a little bit short, come up with, you know, 30 to 35 hours. So there's always, you know, every field is, you know, going to be, every trade is going to be just depending on weather, and, you know, there's also going to be that time when, you know, you're going to be working a lot of hours, you know, and it's going to be nonstop. When it gets really cold out, you know, this isn't going to be a 9 to 5. This is going to be wake up at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, and, you know, go fix the furnace. So, you know, those are, you know, I wouldn't say that's a downfall to me. You know, that's what I enjoyed. I know one of the questions was like, what did I really like, or what did I find gratifying about this position, about this career? And that was one of the biggest things for me that I really enjoyed was there was an inconsistency to the hours, but if I had a phone call, if I had a service call come in like at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, and it was, you know, sub-zero temperatures outside, it was a really good feeling to be able to go into a home and fix a furnace and provide heat, and that's safety, that's comfort for the family that's living there. So that was, for me, that was one of the most gratifying things about this job, this career.
So in relation to that, so you talked a little bit about the hours and the peaks and the valleys kind of thing, but do your students tend to, or is there opportunity to go either to work for somebody, or do they start their own business, or how do they do a mixture? How does that work for students?
So at this point, I've been teaching in here for almost 4 years, and some of my earlier students are looking to start their own company. It's really, it's a tough thing to do right when you get out of school to, jump right into a business and start up a business, because there's so much equipment out there. There's so much that, you almost need to have that experience of working out in the field before you dive right into owning your own business. But definitely, there's a opportunity for business owners. Some of my students are making their way into that field now, where they're owning their own businesses. But most of my students graduate the program and they go straight to work. They're either they start off as installers and they're doing light troubleshooting and kind of progress in their careers from there. But then again, I've also had other students that really liked the refrigeration side, and so they kind of went away from just the heating and ventilating and went more towards working in supermarkets or working in large warehouses where they might be freezing or flash freezing foods or things like that. So it's kind of a variety.
So in relation to that, this is a two-part question then.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do go to work for somebody, you talked about the fact that there's a lot of tools and a lot of equipment. So if you do go to work for somebody, do they supply that equipment for you, or is that those tools of the trade and stuff, or is that something that you need to come in with? And then as a follow-up to that, you just mentioned that some people like to get into the air conditioning, the refrigeration side of it and go to work for companies. So do companies hire people specifically, like does a Fairway or a Walmart or a large warehouse, a Costco, do they hire somebody specifically on staff to take care of those things? So two parts, the tools, and then do companies hire people to do those things specifically?
So with the tools, we'll start off with the tools. We have a very basic tool set that we require for the program, and it's just to get you started and get you through the program where you can complete all your different competencies. As you make your way out into the field, your tool list is going to grow. You're never going to stop buying tools, and you're never going to stop learning. Some companies will provide you either a stipend, or they might even load up your van, your service vans with tools. And some companies will require you to purchase your own tools. So it all depends. It also depends on the size of the company, what they require of you. Usually, like the more expensive tools, like the torch kit or any of the diagnostic tools are usually provided by the company. But I would say that, be ready to, purchase your own common hand tools and take those with you, wherever you go. As far as the second part of the question was, are companies hiring in-house? Some companies are, most companies like to have, somebody who's knowledgeable in HVAC. As we're looking through like job descriptions, there's a time in our program where we start looking at, employment and looking at job descriptions on, sites like Indeed, or, I have contractors come in and talking to the students. And one of the things that we're always looking at is, a lot of these positions are always, whether they're maintenance positions or whether they're working for, a supermarket, they might want you to have a well-rounded set of skills. It won't be specific to just HVAC, but they might want you to have skills in light carpentry, light plumbing, operating, equipment, forklifts, those types of, heavy equipment. But HVAC is always a big part of that job description. And I think a lot of it has to do with that when you learn HVAC, you're learning many different skill sets. So we're doing a section in plumbing, we're learning a section in welding, in brazing, a section in refrigeration, a full section of safety, So it's kind of like a lot of different skills, and I think contractors and employers know that, that when they hire somebody with HVAC background, they're hiring somebody that has a very well-rounded set of skill sets.
Nice and very important. So another question here, in the video, it looked like students might have been using an app on possibly their phone.
Oh, yeah.
Another tool. So is that an app that a student can download? Do they have to purchase it? Or was that a specific tool that they were using?
So the specific tool that was on the video was what's called a manometer, and it records air pressure inside the ducts so that we can calibrate airflow. I would say that every year we're using more and more apps as I'm teaching this course. There's always new apps that we're trying. Most of them are free, with the exception of maybe like a refrigerant log type app that's helping you keep track of all the different refrigerants that you're using. That's at a minimal cost of maybe, I think it's under $4. It's like $4.99, maybe $5 for the app. But it's most of those apps are free, and we're always trying new technology. So if a new tool comes out, and part of what I do is I meet with a lot of contractors, and I have them come in and talk to us about the changes in the industry. And so if they recommend a tool for the program, we're usually really good about staying on top of it so that our students get the exposure to the latest and greatest in all the different types of tools that are coming out. So yeah, it's something that we encourage, is technology. So a lot of times my students will come into the program and they'll use their phones, they'll use an iPad or a tablet, and there's all kinds of apps that I can recommend. And so they download them, and we use them all in the lab. So I guess you could say a lot of it is just research based as well. Sometimes my students go to trade shows, so all the local wholesalers will invite us to trade shows and things like that, and they might really like a tool that they want to purchase. And a lot of these tools, you can use them either with the digital displays or you can download apps. And so yeah, I'm all for it. It's like you gotta go with the times. And so like I was saying, a lot of this equipment here is app based, so that we can make changes to our temperatures remotely, and that's going to save us money in the long run when it comes down to efficiency. So yeah, definitely, we're always going to be trending that way.
Very interesting. So let's go all the way back to high school at this point.
Yeah.
Are there courses in high school that either you took or that students now might think about taking that would relate to the field? And would they give you a competitive advantage if you did?
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to see, a lot more in the high schools. One of the classes that I took when I was in high school, and some of the classes that I recommend to some of the students that come to and ask me about different classes, is, anything in the building trades, anything that's going to give you a really, really good knowledge of building materials, construction, but even like light carpentry, anything that has to do with measurement. All of those types of classes are going to be a great benefit. If you know how to use a tape measure, and you're really good with precision measurements, sheet metal is going to be a lot of fun. We're figuring out a lot of angles. There's a lot of thinking outside the box when you're building, sheet metal plans. So a lot of times you're going to be faced with installing pieces of equipment in really tight spaces. So you'll have to construct something right there on the site. And so, definitely, knowing how to measure and having a good sense, a good understanding of how things are built. You might have to, change the location of a furnace or the application. So anything that's going to help with building construction, hardware, light carpentry, any of those types of classes are a big plus.
So what about math? Would it be basic math, basic algebra, geometry? How far do you think they need to go?
So, math is very important in our field because, we're calculating a lot of pressures and temperatures. We're converting a lot of pressures to temperatures, and it's a very important part of our field. But there again, there's apps that are starting to help us with that math. So, don't let that deter you from, getting into a trade. It's like, well, maybe my math skills aren't, where they should be. I'd say a little higher than a basic math. If you get into an algebra, you're doing very, very well. If you struggle with math, there's lots of apps that are helping us with the calculations, to charge units. There's apps that are helping us with the measurements. And so those are the types of apps that I like to introduce to the students, and so then that they can use those in their daily lives when they're out there working.
So outside of the knowledge of the business, when it comes to skills that a person would need in the field, do they need to have good people skills? Do they not? I mean, how much time do you spend working with people outside of what might be coworkers in this field?
All the time. This field is very, very strong on the soft skills. A lot of times you'll be working with homeowners that are going to ask a lot of questions. They're paying a lot of money for you to be there, either installing or repairing their piece of equipment. So they want to know that you know what you're doing, and that you're going to be fast and efficient at it. And so yeah, definitely, just knowing how to talk to your customers, building their trust, and then definitely, once you build the trust of your customer, to perform the work. So you're constantly having to talk to, to different people, employers, talking to your boss, relaying information back, talking to your technician, supervisors. There's got to be good communication between the company, so that a lot of times when you're out there working, there's a loss of revenue, loss of money if you're having to go back and redo work, or having to redo service calls. So definitely, keeping a close communication between everybody, and from the office all the way into the field is very important.
So I would bet that this is one of those things where if you do a good job, if I called you into my home and you did a great job and you were trustworthy, you seem to really be on the up and up with me, every time something happens, you're probably going to be the person I call, right? Absolutely.
I mean, that's I get the questions a lot from students, like, what's the good company to apply for, or I get people calling the shop all the time here, the lab, saying, we know you have an HVAC program, could you recommend a good company? And that's a really tough question, because I always tell my students, a company can be made or it can be broken by the people who work there. So, if you're a student just leaving the program, I want to make sure that your stuff, that you're going to go out there, you're going to perform, you're going to do good work, and you're going to make that company, you're going to build that company. So, if a company ends up with a bad employee, it's not going to be long before they make a bad name for themselves. So our goal here is to teach you all the right procedures, all the right techniques, and kind of help you along the way, so that when you get out there, who knows, you might be the turning factor in making a company a great company. So that's our goal.
So when it comes to going out and working, is this the kind of work that you would do in teams, or is this more of a one person service call type of thing, or maybe it's both?
I would say that from my experience, it's a little bit of both. And from what I've talked to with contractors, obviously when you first get out there and you're working, a lot of contractors want to want to help build you up. And so, you know, you might be out there working with a team, maybe one other person on the installation side. And a lot of that has to do with the heavy lifting of the equipment, taking the old equipment out, and working very closely together to accomplish a full installation. But I think as your career progresses, and I'm saying, you know, within a year to 2 years, you will most likely be installing equipment by yourself. And I'm not talking about the full install, but maybe a large portion of it. And definitely, like if you get into a service van and you're troubleshooting, now that's a lot more liability because you're making repairs to gas lines, you're making repairs to the refrigeration circuits. So contractors want to make absolutely sure that you've proven yourself and that you have the right skills to be making the repairs. And then from that point on, you're pretty independent. You know, they want you to be able to go make repairs on your own, and definitely always have a good team behind you. You know, somebody that you can call, good technical support. So it's, you know, nowadays it's kind of like a blend of both. If you come across a troubleshoot call and maybe you're stumped by it, you know, a lot of times, you know, you can call somebody, and you know, everybody's pretty helpful as far as, you know, guiding you, and especially if they know that you're new to the service world. And that's, you know, that speaks highly of a good company. You know, if you get onto a company that's willing to help you along the way and get you to the point where, you know, you're very productive and you're able to make all the repairs on your own, I think that would be the end goal.
Sorry, my mute button didn't come off there. So it sounds like you need to be, once you're on your own, sounds like you need to be kind of a self-starter in some ways. And then you talked a little bit about being able to call for support or stuff. But is one of the things that's important to this position, you know, do you need to have critical thinking skills, problem solving skills? Are those important to be successful at this?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of what I emphasize strongly on the technical side. So, you know, when I say, you know, call for support, I want you to be able to leave the program and, you know, go do your work. And if you were to, you know, call, like, let's say Tempstar or Goodman or Amana or any one of these manufacturers, you know, they're going to be listening to your vocabulary. They're going to be listening to the terms of the components that you're asking for. And so, you know, building up that critical thinking, and, you know, they might ask you questions related to, you know, gas pressures, and they're going to expect that you've already done the work so that they can help you with the troubleshooting. So for me, you know, what I emphasize strongly on is, you know, building that critical thinking, building that technical ability, that technical vocabulary, so that when you are stumped and you're having to make a phone call, which, you know, it's going to happen to all of us, that you have the information that they need, and the technical information that's asked of you, so that you can maintain a good relationship with the manufacturers, with the wholesalers. And, you know, once the wholesalers learn how, you know, that they can, you know, that you know the vocabulary, that you know all the different parts of the furnaces, the ACs, then that just builds the trust, and they're able to help you a little bit more.
Great. So I have another question in regards to employment. When you're looking at an employer, and, you know, especially when you're first done with the education piece of it and you're looking for a job, obviously you need a job, so you need to get paid, kind of thing. But is it important to think about that long-term employment, to think about whether or not a company is going to offer you or be able to provide you with opportunities to grow and to move up a ladder, or to just learn more things?
Yeah, I think that all comes down to ambition. You know, you definitely always want to keep, you know, an open mind, especially when it comes down to this trade. You know, I've had a lot of students that you know, they were looking for opportunities here within the Quad Cities, and they found better opportunities in other parts of the country. And I think that's great, you know, that, you know, they're willing to think outside the box and look for those opportunities. And the same thing goes for the companies that you're working for. You know, I've had some students come back to me and say, yeah, remember I started working with so-and-so, but now I'm over here. And they're offering me additional training opportunities. And it's all going to come down to, you know, how ambitious you are, how willing you are to take your career to the next level. Because like I said, with this field, you're never going to stop learning. There's so much equipment out there. Things are changing every year. They're changing now faster than ever. So, you know, we try to get you so that you hit the ground running. But, you know, I'm 20 years into this field, and I'm always learning. You know, I'm always taking classes. I'm always taking continuing education, logging into webinars, trying to learn all the new technology, see how things are changing in the industry, and yeah, I mean that's a big part of this field.
So you mentioned continuing education. Is there certifications that come along with this? Are there certifications that you could gain that maybe people who might want to hire you might be looking for?
Yeah. So, you know, our program here is accredited with HVAC Excellence. So that's a third-party accreditation that we've acquired for the program. And basically what that allows us to do is use all of their exams geared towards certifications. And there are many certifications that we go after while you're here in school. We go after a heating certification, AC certification, the EPA certification. And so all of those certifications at some point will require continuing education credits. So whether it's a North American Technician Excellence certification or an HVAC Excellence certification, all those types of industry certifications, we can proctor those exams here in the college. All of our training is geared towards those certifications. And then once you acquire those certifications, we're putting together continuing education classes so that you can come back and maintain those certifications. A lot of times, like for example, the North American Technician Excellence certification, if you don't continue your education, eventually they do expire. So it's kind of like starting all over. And those certifications speak really highly when you go apply for jobs, because contractors know that you're having to, you know, continue your education, and so that you're not just complacent with your degree, and you're constantly seeking, you know, more opportunities for learning.
Nice and important information to have.
Yeah.
So we are just under the 10-minute mark of what we have left.
Okay.
So students, I want to be sure and open it up. If you have a question and you have not put it in the chat, you can certainly unmute yourself at this point in time. We'll see it if you unmute yourself. So we'll be quiet and you can answer, or you can ask your question so Zeke can answer. So be thinking about that, please, and do ask your questions. If you don't want to unmute yourself and ask, put it in that chat and I'll be sure that we get it asked. So while we're waiting on them to unmute themselves and ask a question, I mean, you have to ask with COVID. I mean,
Yeah.
Obviously it's changed some things because we're virtual right now, when we would much rather you be able to show them through the lab in person.
Yeah.
But has COVID changed the industry? Have you seen what it's done? Or,
you know, I put a little star on one of those questions that asked, you know, how high is the demand for these jobs? Especially, I put a star behind it because I did want to talk about like how the industry changed. You know, they're very difficult times that we're going through right now. And, you know, last April, when, you know, we went through our first shutdown here at the school, I didn't get the opportunity to finish a full semester with some students. And so, you know, that threw us a big curveball. You know, we didn't see this pandemic, you know, taking a turn for the worse like that. and we're still fighting it. But I think what's happening is that I think that students are being exposed to more information than they ever have before. So, you know, traditionally the program was very hands-on. You know, we were always in the lab, we were learning, and that's the best way to learn this field. But now, because of the circumstances, you know, we did a lot of research, and I reached out to Cengage, who provided us with a lot of really nice their simulations, so you can get into the programs, and the pieces of equipment are almost like the piece of equipment that you see here in the lab. So we're still able to learn procedures, and you know, how to test gas valves, how to test airflow. And so I think just, you know, having all those extra tools really changed the way we learn. And as far as like out in the field, you know, now I have students that are out there working as they're, you know, they're students here, but maybe they're working a second shift job. And so, you know, they're constantly, you know, either FaceTiming me, or we're using Zoom a lot. And so I'm able to help them out in the field as well through their career. So it's kind of like, I think a lot of companies are doing that nowadays, is, you know, using the technology that we have so that, you know, we can continue to help each other out. But one of the things that I noticed was that, you know, I thought there was going to be a slowdown, you know, especially with all the shutdowns and things that were happening. But from what I gather is that, you know, people are still needing to have their equipment repaired. We're still needing to install new equipment. So taking extra precautions, but it didn't really impact our industry a whole lot. You know, it's just something you can't live without.
So something you can't live without speaks to job security, obviously.
Right.
And then I have two questions from the chat, and they kind of go together. One is, how long does it take to get through the program? And then the other is, what's the first thing that a student would learn, or what's the first thing that you teach in the program?
Oh, that's a great question. So the program is 10 months. 10 months. We're a traditional school calendar. So we go through 3 semesters, the fall semester, a spring semester, and then a summer semester. So it totals up to 10 months. One of the first things that I teach is basic electricity, just knowing the flow of electricity, how it's related to magnetism, how we're going to use electricity in the furnaces and ACs. So we're constantly building circuits, and we use a lot of different trainers. But when I'm teaching electricity, I'm always gearing it back towards the equipment, so that, you know, you get very familiar with all the pieces of equipment that you're working with. The other thing that I teach is refrigeration, you know, fundamentals of refrigeration. So recovering the refrigerant, recharging the units, and just the safe procedures to handling the refrigerants. So a lot of it is just safety, you know, safety around electricity, and safety around geared around high pressure gases, inflammable gases.
So in an industry that we can't live without, in under a year, I can get my education and get a job that I can earn money to live off of in under a year. And it's going to be a job that that's going to be around. It's not going anywhere. It's probably only going to continue to grow, which is really
Yeah, you know,
awesome.
when I started teaching this course, I'll go back even further. When I first took these classes, remember I said, you know, I was tired of always having to, you know, pay somebody to fix my furnace. It seemed like every year it was breaking down. And so when I took these classes, you know, I was able to fix my furnace. I never had to call anybody to, you know, to make changes to, you know, airflow, maximize its efficiency. And so when I teach this course, you know, I'd like to think that, you know, every student that comes in this door and you know, puts in the work, when they leave this program, they're going to be able to install their own equipment. They're going to be able to work on their own equipment. And I think that right there is going to pay itself back. You know, I'm not sure what the tuition is right now for the classes and everything, but when I came into this program, I was just hoping, you know, to be able to work on my own equipment, and, you know, I built a career off of it. And so it was, you know, I like to say that we're offering more than just a career, but you know, this is a lifetime of learning, and this is going to be a lifetime of, you know, money saving on your own equipment.
Okay, so we have 2 minutes. I would venture a guess when you talk about tuition, you can get this education for somewhere between $3,000 and at the very max $5,000. So somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000, you can have this education done. And I would imagine that to have a new, oftentimes it seems to be that you install a new furnace and an air conditioner at the same time. So I would venture a guess that having those two things done would probably cost me more than $5,000. But what I want to ask you is, so in the last 2 minutes of this, if you think about what you didn't know then that you know now, what are one or two things that you think every student that's thinking about this should know?
You know, just very quickly, you know, you hit it, you said it perfectly. You know, what you pay for tuition is gonna, it's not gonna be nothing compared to what the new system, especially nowadays, is gonna cost. Because of the upgrades to all the different pieces of equipment, and you know, the cost of the equipment. I would probably say, you know, just keep an open mind and just be willing to learn for the rest of your life. You know, this is not something that you're going to master in 1 year. You're going to hit the ground running, and you're going to learn a lot about how things work. But just be prepared to continuously look for opportunities to keep learning.
Awesome, thank you. So students, if we're done with this and you think of another question, reach out to your counselors or your teachers, and they can be sure and get it to Zeke and get your questions answered if they don't know the answer. Otherwise, that screenshot that's up there has some web pages for you to visit that you can go to learn more things. Thank you so much, students, for joining us for this. I know there's some more coming, so I'm sure we'll see you again. And Zeke, thank you so much for taking the time to help these students learn more about what you have to offer and understand the trade.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tishley.
Thank you. All right, so I think we're done. Is there anything anything else that I should add, or we're good to go? All right. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day, and we will talk to you later.
Thank you.